I know how to read a room, and I know when silence carries weight. But nothing prepared me for the silence that filled Margaret Holloway's office that gray November afternoon. When I saw who was standing behind her desk, every muscle in my body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The only sound was my own heartbeat hammering against my ribs. 3 days earlier, I'd buried my wife. Catherine and I had been married for 38 years. We'd built something together, 3 restaurants across the greater Toronto area, a reputation for honest food and fair wages, and a family that included not just our 2 daughters but also Daniel, my late brother's son. We'd raised Daniel from age 12 after his parents died in a car accident. He was supposed to be the son I never had. The morning Catherine died, I was making coffee. She'd gone out for her usual walk along the ravine trail near our Rosedale home. It was early October, the kind of morning where the air smells like wet leaves and possibilities. I expected her back by 8. At 9, I started calling her phone. At 9:30, I drove the trail route. At 10, 2 officers knocked on my door. They found her at the bottom of a slope near the creek. The medical examiner said it looked like she'd slipped on wet rocks, hit her head. She was 62 years old, in perfect health, until she wasn't. Just like that. 1 minute you're planning dinner, the next you're choosing a casket. The funeral was held at St. James Cathedral. Daniel gave a beautiful eulogy. He talked about how Catherine had welcomed him into our family, how she'd taught him to make her famous butter tarts, how she'd never treated him as anything less than her own child. His wife Amber stood beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Their 5-year-old daughter Emma clung to her mother's leg. I believed every word he said. The reception was held at our flagship restaurant, Beacon Hall, in the Distillery District. Catherine would have liked that. She'd designed every detail of that space, the exposed brick walls, the vintage light fixtures, the open kitchen where diners could watch our chefs work. The place was packed. Staff members, regular customers, suppliers we'd worked with for decades. Everyone had a Catherine story. Daniel managed everything. He coordinated with the caterers, greeted guests, made sure I ate something even though food tasted like cardboard. He'd been running the business side of our restaurants for the past 8 years, ever since he'd finished his MBA at Rotman. Catherine handled the creative vision and I managed the kitchens, but Daniel kept the numbers straight, or so I thought. On the 3rd day after the funeral, I was sitting in our living room, staring at Catherine's reading chair, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Brennan, this is Margaret Holloway. I was Catherine's accountant. I knew Margaret. She'd been handling our personal finances and the restaurant books for 15 years. Catherine trusted her completely. Margaret, hello. If this is about paperwork, I'm not quite. I need you to come to my office. Today. Now. If possible. Her voice was steady but urgent, the way a doctor might tell you there's been a complication. And, Mr. Brennan, don't mention this call to anyone, especially not to Daniel or Amber. Do you understand? Something cold settled in my stomach. I don't understand. What's this about? I can't discuss it over the phone. But Thomas, may I call you Thomas? I think Catherine might have been trying to protect you from something. I found documents in her private files, things that don't add up. Things that... She paused. Just please come. Alone. My office at 4 o'clock. Don't tell anyone where you're going. She hung up before I could ask anything else. I sat there holding the phone, my mind racing. Documents? Protecting me from what? And why specifically warn me not to tell Daniel? He was family. He'd been handling our financial operations for years. If there was something wrong with the books, he'd want to know. Unless he already knew. That thought landed like a stone in dark water, sending ripples I didn't want to follow. I pushed it away. Daniel had given up his own career plans to help us. He'd turned down job offers from major hotel chains to stay with our small operation. He and Amber had moved into the apartment above our Leslieville location to save money, even though I'd offered to help them buy a house. But Catherine's last words to me, whispered in the hospital before they took her for scans, suddenly felt heavier. Watch the money, Tom. Promise me, you'll watch it. I'd thought she was just worried about me managing without her guidance. Now I wasn't so sure. I drove to Margaret's office in North York, without telling anyone. The November sky was iron gray, threatening snow. Her office was in a professional building near Young and Shepherd, one of those anonymous towers filled with accountants and lawyers and financial advisors. The receptionist told me to go straight back. Margaret's office door was open. I walked in and stopped dead. Behind Margaret's desk, standing with her arms crossed and an expression I'd never seen before, cold, almost frightened, was Catherine's closest friend, Patricia Chen. Patricia owned the property management company that handled our restaurant leases. She'd been at our wedding. She was Emma's godmother. "Tom," Patricia said quietly, "you need to sit down." I sat. Margaret closed the door and locked it. "Before we start," Margaret said, settling into her chair, "I need you to promise you won't do anything rash. Don't call Daniel. Don't confront him. Not yet. Can you promise me that? I don't even know what we're talking about. Promise first." Something in her tone made me nod. "I promise." Margaret pulled out a thick folder. 2 weeks before Catherine died, she came to see me. She'd been going through old records, tax returns, loan documents, vendor contracts. She said she'd noticed some discrepancies. Small things at first. An extra withdrawal here. A payment to a vendor she didn't recognize there. She asked me to do a complete audit of the business accounts, going back 5 years. She opened the folder. I saw printouts of bank statements, highlighted sections, post-it notes in Catherine's handwriting. "Tom, someone has been systematically embezzling from your restaurants. It started small, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. 500 here, 1,000 there. But in the last 2 years, it's accelerated dramatically. We're talking about $80,000 in the past year alone." The room tilted. "80,000? Patricia leaned forward. "It gets worse. 3 months ago, Daniel came to me about buying the building that houses your Leslieville location. He said you and Catherine wanted to purchase it as an investment property. He had documents, signatures. Everything looked legitimate. I helped him secure financing. The loan is in your name and Catherine's, Tom. $2.4 million. That's impossible. Catherine never mentioned. The signatures were forged," Patricia said. "I didn't know until yesterday when I compared them to documents I knew Catherine had signed personally. They're good forgeries. Very good. But they're fake. I couldn't breathe properly. Daniel." "We can't prove it yet," Margaret said. "That's why Catherine was being careful. She wanted evidence. She'd been documenting everything, collecting proof before confronting him. She knew if she accused him without solid evidence, he'd deny it and cover his tracks. Or run," Patricia added. I looked at the papers spread across the desk. Catherine's neat annotations in the margins. She'd known. She'd been investigating our nephew, our son, in every way that mattered, and she hadn't told me. Why? "Tom," Margaret said gently, "there's something else. Catherine made changes to her will 3 weeks ago. Very specific changes. She came here, signed everything, and left a sealed letter with me. She said if anything happened to her, those were her exact words, if anything happens to me, I was to give you this letter and these documents." She held out an envelope. My name was written on it in Catherine's handwriting. My hands shook as I took it. "Catherine's death," I said slowly, my throat tight. "The medical examiner said it was an accident. She slipped on wet rocks." Patricia and Margaret exchanged a look. "Read the letter," Margaret said. I opened it carefully, as if Catherine herself might fall out. Her handwriting blurred through my tears, but I forced myself to focus. "My dearest Tom, if you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. I pray I'm being paranoid, but I can't shake the feeling that Daniel knows I'm looking into the missing money. Yesterday, I saw him in my office, going through my desk. He said he was looking for vendor contracts, but my locked drawer was open, the one where I keep my investigation notes. I moved everything to Margaret's office after that. I don't want to believe our boy could hurt anyone, but I've learned that desperation makes people do terrible things. The embezzlement started as cash flow problems from his gambling, I think. I found betting slips in his car. Then it became a way to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford. Now it's so deep he can't see a way out except to keep going. The property fraud was the final straw. He's planning something big, maybe to sell the restaurants out from under us, maybe to force us into bankruptcy so he can buy them cheap through a shell company. I haven't figured out all of it yet. If I die unexpectedly, don't let them rule it an accident without a thorough investigation. Check my phone records. Check Daniel's. Look at his bank accounts, especially any offshore accounts registered to Amber's maiden name, Rousseau. I've loved you for 38 years, Tom. I've loved Daniel too, like my own child. That's why this hurts so much. That's why I couldn't tell you I saw how you looked at him, the son you'd always wanted. I couldn't break your heart until I was absolutely certain. Be careful. Trust Margaret and Patricia. And remember, the restaurant was never about the money. It was about creating something good in this world, something that took care of people. Don't let Daniel steal that from you. Don't let him steal your safety or your peace. I hope you never read this. I hope I'm wrong about all of it. All my love, always. Catherine. The letter slipped from my fingers. Patricia caught it before it fell. The police, I started. Won't do anything unless you have solid proof, Patricia said. Catherine's letter isn't evidence of murder, just suspicion. The ME already ruled it an accident. Without a reason to suspect foul play, they won't reopen the investigation. So what do I do? Margaret pulled out another document. Catherine left instructions. She wanted you to have time to gather evidence before confronting Daniel. She knew he'd run or destroy records if he suspected anything. So, here's what we're going to do. For the next 2 hours, they explained Catherine's plan. It was detailed, methodical, careful. So like her, she'd thought of everything: how to access Daniel's computer files, how to document the embezzlement, how to trace the forged loan, how to build an airtight case. But we need to move fast, Margaret warned. The loan payments start in 2 weeks. Once Daniel realizes you're not making those payments, he'll know something's wrong. Does he know Catherine was investigating? We don't know, Patricia said carefully. But Tom, the timing of her death, it's suspicious. She was an experienced hiker. That trail wasn't difficult. And she fell exactly where there are no cameras, no witnesses. I drove home in a daze. It was dark by the time I pulled into our driveway. The house felt enormous and empty. Catherine's coat still hung by the door. Her slippers were still by her reading chair. For 38 years, I'd walked into this house and called out, "I'm home," and heard her answer from wherever she was. The silence now was suffocating. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Hey, Uncle Tom. Just checking in. Want me to bring dinner by? Amber made her lasagna. Uncle Tom. He'd called me that since he was 12 years old. I'd taught him to tie a tie, to drive, to make a proper stock. I'd walked him down the aisle at his wedding. I'd held Emma in the hospital the day she was born. And he might have killed Catherine. I typed back, "That's okay. Going to bed early." I couldn't see him yet. Couldn't look at his face and pretend everything was normal. Not until I knew the truth. The next morning, I told Daniel I was taking a few weeks away. Going to Vancouver to stay with Catherine's sister, I said. I needed time to process. He understood completely, he said. He'd take care of everything at the restaurants. Don't worry about anything. Instead, I checked into a hotel near Margaret's office. For the next 8 days, with Margaret and Patricia's help, I lived in Catherine's investigation. I learned things I wish I'd never learned. Daniel had been stealing from us for 7 years, not 5. It started with small cash withdrawals, petty cash. He'd list in the books for supplies that were never purchased. Then it escalated to fake vendor invoices, payments to shell companies he'd created. The money went to online gambling sites, cryptocurrency investments that failed, luxury purchases for Amber. The property loan was even worse. He'd forged our signatures on documents claiming we wanted to purchase the Leslieville building, then planned to immediately sell it to another company, one registered to Amber's maiden name. The profit would have been over $700,000. Our money, straight into their pockets, leaving us with a massive loan we never agreed to. But the most damning evidence came from Catherine's phone records. The day before she died, she'd called Daniel at 9:15 in the morning. The call lasted 4 minutes. 20 minutes after that call, she'd left for her walk. She usually walked at 7. Why did she change her routine that day? I listened to her voicemail, saved messages I couldn't bring myself to delete. Then I found one she'd left for me 2 days before she died. One I'd never listened to because I'd been in the kitchen when she called. "Tom, it's me. Don't pick up. I know you're prepping. I'm going to talk to Daniel tomorrow morning. I can't put it off anymore. I'll tell him what I know and give him a chance to come clean. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe we can fix this as a family. I need to believe there's still good in him. Call me when you get this." I played it 3 times, my vision blurring with tears. She'd given him a chance. She'd confronted him. And the next day, she was dead. Margaret had a friend in the police department, a detective named Sarah Kwan, who specialized in financial crimes. We met her at a coffee shop in Scarborough. "Here's the problem," Detective Kwan said after reviewing our evidence. "The embezzlement, the fraud, that's clear. I can get warrants for his bank records, computer files, everything. But the death? Your wife's death was ruled an accident, without evidence of foul play. I can't touch that. But the timing is suspicious, yes, but not proof. I'd need something concrete, a confession, witnesses, physical evidence that it wasn't an accident. So he gets away with murder." I didn't say that. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "But we have to be smart. Let me pull the embezzlement thread. Sometimes when you arrest someone for one crime, they crack and confess to others, especially if they think cooperating might reduce their sentence. How long will that take? Getting warrants? Gathering everything? 2 to 3 weeks if we move fast." She looked at me directly. "Can you keep pretending everything's normal for that long? Can you look at him and not let him see what you know?" I thought about Catherine, who'd spent weeks pretending, investigating, protecting me, even as she put herself in danger. "Yes," I said, "I can do it." But I underestimated Daniel. 4 days later, I got a text from him. "Need to meet. Important. Beacon Hall at 9 p.m. tonight. Come alone." I showed it to Margaret and Patricia. We agreed I should go, but Detective Kwan would have officers nearby, just in case. I wore a wire. If Daniel confessed to anything, we'd have it on record. Beacon Hall was closed on Mondays. I used my key to enter through the back. The kitchen was dark, but I could see light coming from the dining room. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Daniel sat at our best table, the one where Catherine and I used to sit on anniversaries. There was an open bottle of wine, Catherine's favorite Pinot Noir, and 2 glasses. "Uncle Tom," he said, "have a seat." I sat across from him. Up close, I could see he looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, his shirt wrinkled. His hands shook slightly as he poured wine into both glasses. "I know," he said simply. "Know what?" "I know Aunt Catherine was investigating me. I know she found the money. I know about the loan." He met my eyes. "And I know you know too. Margaret Holloway's been making calls. Patricia asked me for documents she never needed before. You're not in Vancouver. You're building a case." The wire under my shirt felt hot against my skin. "Daniel, let me talk, please." He took a long drink of wine. It started with poker. Stupid, I know. I was good at it, or I thought I was. Won some decent money at first. Then I lost. Big. Owed some people who weren't patient about getting paid back. I borrowed from the restaurant just to buy time. I swore I'd pay it back. 7 years, Daniel. 7 years of stealing from us. I know. And then, it wasn't about the poker anymore. It was about keeping up appearances. Amber's friends. They all have money. Real money. She wanted things: a nice car, private school for Emma, a house in Forest Hill. I couldn't give her any of it on my salary. So I took more. And then I couldn't stop because the hole was too deep. "The property fraud," I said, my voice hard. $2.4 million. That wasn't about keeping up appearances. That was calculated theft. He flinched. That was going to be my way out. Make enough on that one deal to pay everything back, clean slate. But Aunt Catherine figured it out before I could close it. "She called you. The morning before she died." His face went pale. "Yes." "What did you talk about?" "She told me what she knew. Said she was disappointed, but she wanted to help me. Asked me to come clean, to work with her to make it right." Tears ran down his face. "She said she loved me. Said she'd always love me, no matter what." I gripped the edge of the table. And then what happened? I panicked. I knew once you found out, that was it. You'd never forgive me. I'd lose everything, the restaurants, the family. Emma would grow up knowing her father was a thief. He stopped, breathing hard. So you what? I asked Aunt Catherine to meet me on the trail. Early, before anyone else was around. I told her I wanted to talk, to explain everything. She agreed. She always gave me chances. She was the only person who ever. He broke down completely, sobbing. She was so kind to me. Even that morning, she was still trying to save me. And you pushed her. The words hung in the air between us. Daniel stared at me, his face crumbling. It happened so fast. We were arguing. She said she had to tell you everything, that it was the only way I'd actually face consequences and change. I grabbed her arm. She pulled away, and she just slipped, fell backward down the slope, hit her head on the rocks. I climbed down to her, and she was just gone. I didn't mean I never meant. You let us think it was an accident. You gave a eulogy. You comforted me. I'm sorry. He was crying so hard he could barely speak. I'm so sorry, Uncle Tom. I loved her. I loved both of you. I messed up everything. Everything I touch turns to shit, and I don't know how to fix it. I stood up slowly. Every part of me wanted to lunge across the table to hurt him the way he'd hurt me, hurt Catherine. But Detective Kwan's voice crackled in my earpiece. We got it. Stay calm. Officers are moving in now. Daniel, I said quietly, you can't fix this. You can't bring her back. All you can do now is tell the truth. Tell the police exactly what you told me. His eyes widened as he registered what I'd said. The front door burst open. 4 officers poured in, guns drawn. Daniel Brennan, you're under arrest for the murder of Catherine Brennan and fraud. The rest happened in a blur. Daniel didn't resist. He just sat there, crying, as they cuffed him. They led him out past the bar where Catherine had tested 100 cocktail recipes, past the photos of our staff on the wall, past everything we'd built together. At the door, he looked back at me. I'm sorry, he said again. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The trial took 11 months. Daniel pled guilty to second-degree murder and multiple counts of fraud. The Crown accepted the plea because the confession was so detailed, so damning. He got 18 years. Amber filed for divorce immediately. She claimed she knew nothing about the embezzlement or the property fraud. The investigation couldn't prove otherwise, though I'll never believe she was completely in the dark. She moved back to Montreal with Emma. I haven't seen my granddaughter since. Patricia helped me unwind the fraudulent loan. The bank was understanding once they saw the forged signatures and police reports. Margaret spent months sorting through the financial mess, separating legitimate expenses from Daniel's theft. We recovered about 40% of what he'd stolen. The rest was gone, gambled away or spent on things that couldn't be recovered. But the money was never the point. Catherine had known that. The letter she'd left me said it clearly. The restaurant was never about the money. It was about creating something good in this world, something that took care of people. So I made changes. First, I brought the staff together, everyone who'd worked at our 3 locations, and told them the truth. All of it. They deserved to know. Some cried. Some were angry. All of them said they wanted to stay, to help rebuild what Daniel had tried to destroy. Second, I brought in new management. Young people, hungry and honest. People Catherine would have mentored. I taught them everything she'd taught me about running a restaurant with integrity. Third, I restructured the business. The restaurants are now employee-owned. When I die, they don't go to distant relatives who might not care. They go to the people who've poured their sweat and souls into making them work. And fourth, I created the Catherine Brennan Foundation. It helps people struggling with gambling addiction, people like Daniel before he crossed the line into criminality. It funds treatment programs and family counseling. Every dollar we raise is a dollar that might keep someone from making the choices Daniel made. It's been 3 years now. The restaurants are thriving. We opened a 4th location last spring, in Catherine's hometown of Niagara-on-the-Lake. We called it Catherine's, and her picture hangs above the bar, not sad, not grieving, but laughing, the way I want to remember her. Sometimes late at night, when I'm alone in our house, I think about Daniel, about the 12-year-old boy who cried in my arms the day his parents died, who I promised to take care of, about the man who stood at Catherine's funeral and lied to everyone, including himself, about the moment he made a choice that destroyed everything. I don't forgive him. I can't, but I understand something Catherine tried to tell me in her letter. Desperation makes people do terrible things. And sometimes the people closest to you are the most dangerous, precisely because they're close, because they know your routines, your trust, your vulnerabilities. Last month, I got a letter from Daniel. He's in Millhaven Institution, maximum security. The letter was long, rambling, full of apologies and regrets. He said he's taking classes, going to therapy, trying to become someone his daughter won't be ashamed of when she's older. I didn't write back. Maybe someday I will. But not yet. The wound is still too fresh, even after 3 years. Every time I think I'm healing, I remember Catherine's voice on that voicemail. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe we can fix this as a family and the grief crashes over me again. But I'm still here, still cooking, still opening the restaurants every morning and closing them every night. Still trying to build something good in this world, something that takes care of people, because that's what Catherine would have wanted. Not revenge, not endless mourning, but continuation. Legacy. Proof that what we built together was stronger than one person's greed and weakness. The other day, I was at Beacon Hall, training a new sous chef, when I caught my reflection in the stainless steel counter. For just a moment, I saw Catherine standing beside me, the way she used to stand when we worked together, her hand on my shoulder, her quiet voice saying, "You're doing good, Tom. You're doing exactly right." I blinked, and she was gone. But the feeling stayed, the certainty that somewhere, somehow, she knows I kept my promise. I watched the money. I protected what we built. I didn't let Daniel steal our peace. And I'm still here, still cooking, still creating something good in this world. That's enough. It has to be enough.